Welcome to tonight's forum for candidates for alderman in the city of Hendersonville. This is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Hendersonville. My name is Lorelei Gould, and I have the honor of serving as president of the Hendersonville League. I would like to thank everyone for being here this evening, our candidates, the community members, and league members. And now to begin, won't you please stand with me and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And as we hear the phone, I remind all of you to please silence your phones. Thank you. The League of Women Voters, as you know, is a nonpartisan political organization open to both men and women. We do not support or oppose candidates for office or political parties. However, we do take a stand on issues after a study and consensus process. We have a proud history of hosting candidate forums, and just 2 weeks ago, we hosted the mayoral candidate forum. The candidates in front are seeking the office of ward alderman in Hendersonville. Since 1986, the city of Hendersonville has been governed under a mayoral aldermanic city charter. The aldermen represent 6 wards, one of 6 wards in the city, and voters in each ward select 2 aldermen or alderwomen, and these aldermen, alderwomen serve in 4-year staggered terms. Tonight's forum is divided into 2 parts. Part 1 includes candidates from wards 1, 2, and 3, and part 2 will include wards 4, 5, and 6. Ward 1 Alderman Mark Skidmore is running unopposed for the full 4-year term, so he will not be a part of the question and answer portion of tonight's event. But Mark is here this evening, and right over here. Thank you, Mark. And he'll be available for questions following if you would like to speak with him. The Ward 1 candidates in front are seeking the 2-year unexpired term of the late Rosa Long. I want to thank all of the candidates for being with us this evening. We are especially glad to have you and to give the community an opportunity to hear you, see you, and learn more about the issues and your positions. It's great to have 100% participation in this forum. Thank you. I would also like to give my thanks to all of the league members who have shared in the planning and carrying out of tonight's forum, but especially Katrina Gay, who is the chairman of our forum committee. Also, thank you to Kay Franklin with the City of Hendersonville and to Paul Frisbee for video recording tonight's event. The unedited video will be available on Channel 3, on Hendersonville Online, HVille Online, on the League Facebook page, as well as on YouTube, and that will be posted just as soon as we're able to do that. A committee of league members prepared the questions for tonight. You in the audience are invited to submit additional questions on cards. We have representatives holding cards if you would like to submit a question, and as time allows, we will address those questions so long as they are not duplicates and that they're appropriate. We realize that 1 minute in the response is not a lot of time. But we have a lot of candidates, and we want to give each of you an opportunity to speak to the issues. So bear in mind that your responses are 1 minute in length, and please get to the bottom line just as quickly as you can. Thank you. Our moderator tonight is Joe McCaleb. Joe is a retired attorney who practiced law in Hendersonville for 32 years. He is a league member, and he and his wife, Glenda, currently live in Williamson County. Joe, as I said, is a league member, has been a member since 2007, and also currently serves on the League of Women Voters of Tennessee Board of Directors. As moderator, Joe will introduce the candidates and explain the guidelines for the forum, which are also in your program. I'll ask that you hold your applause during the forum so that the candidates can have as much time as possible. But now let us welcome them with our applause.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Joe McCaleb. I'm your moderator tonight. And I want to welcome you to the forum. I want to also welcome all members of the audience to the forum. Before we begin with the questions and answers, I sort of want to go over, for the convenience of the audience as well as each of you, the rules and the format. Each of you will be allowed 1 minute as an opening statement. And then after the opening statement, we will begin with the question and answer period with Ward 1 and go down the line. You will each be asked a question. Each ward will be asked the same question. You will be allowed, each candidate in that ward will be allowed to respond within 1 minute. And then we will move on to the next ward and to the next questions. At the end of the league's questions, then if there are any questions in the audience, we would like to take 2 or 3 questions, written questions, on the cards that have been provided. And we will ask those questions. And then I would like to ask members of the audience, if you write a written question, please direct it to a particular ward, because the candidates, each candidate in that ward then will have 1 minute to respond to your question. Then at the end of the question period of time, we will allow each member or each candidate to make a closing statement of your choice. All right, the ladies sitting on my left are the timekeepers, and their job is to sort of hold you on track to your time, if at all possible. They will hold up a sign saying 30 seconds so that you'll know what your time limit is. And then there's a second sign that says stop. And we would ask that you do your best to follow the rules as best you can. And I know that's a big ask, but try, please. Also, as we go through the rules, as we go through the questions, some of these questions are going to be longer than others as we go through. So if any of you need me to repeat the question, I'll be happy to do that. You just ask me, and I'll be happy to repeat the question. Okay, we want to begin with the opening statement, and we'll allow 1 minute for the opening statement in the following order. Mr. DeLefison?
Yes, sir.
Also known as Skull. I have permission to give you that.
That's correct.
That his nickname is Skull. Mr. McKenzie, Mrs. Petrelli, Mr. Sprouse, Mr. Waters, Mrs. Hedberg, and Mr. Taylor. So, beginning with Mr. DeLefison, I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's okay. That's fine.
1 minute opening statement.
Fine. My name is Jim Detlefson. I acquired a nickname in the police academy in 1971 by the name of Skull. I spent 28 years Metro Police, and then I went to work for the federal government, did 7 years at VA Police. I was also in the Army Reserves, and I went in the active Army in '64 when I graduated from high school during the Vietnam War. Then I continued to serve in the Reserves until 1998, when I also retired from Metro Police. And I just would like to continue to serve my community.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, my name is Brad McKenzie. I am a lifetime resident of Hendersonville. I love this city. I am running because I feel like we're at a crossroad in our city right now. We're going to elect a new mayor. We have a huge growth that is coming to the Middle Tennessee area over the next 25 years. I think we need forward thinking. I think we need planning for the future for not only our children but our children's children as I continue to raise my grandchildren here in this city. So that is my reason for running. Thank you.
Mrs. Petrelli.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight and for your strong positive impact in the city of Hendersonville over the years. My name is Peg Petrelli, and I am the current alderman in Ward 1. When Rosa Long passed away, we lost a loyal alderman. I appreciated the trust that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen put in me in electing me to this position. Having lived in Hendersonville for a long time, I have had the opportunity to be engaged in our city by serving on different committees and leading different local nonprofits. After graduating Hendersonville High School, I obtained a degree in architectural construction and have spent over 20 years in architectural construction management. Those skills I have already used today in making decisions for our city. Having been a resident of Ward 1 for over 26 years, I am greatly invested in our ward, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Sprouse.
Hi, I'm Scott Sprouse. I've sat at this table in this room a lot of times making decisions. I've served for many years as Ward 2 Alderman, and I appreciate my neighbors giving me the opportunity 4 times with their votes to sit in this room. And we've made some very important decisions in this room. Some of them have been very difficult, some of them have been very contentious, but we've always tried to make them on the facts and in a way that represent the entire community and benefit the entire community, not just good for today, but for the next generations. I have my son here, Henry, and he's one of those people that I think about. He was 6 days old when I was first elected, and thanks to our learner's permit, he was in the driver's seat when we came here tonight. But this is the time when you have to make a very important decision, and you have to decide the direction that we're going to take. We're going to have a new mayor, no matter what. We're going to have a new mayor in less than a month, or a little over a month. And I want to use my experience and my good record working with the city and the good decisions I made, some of them big, some of them small, that have compounded for good direction, and to help that new mayor and continue to help my neighbors on the board. Thank you.
Mr. Waters. Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Everybody smile, first of all. It's an exciting night. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Terry Waters. I'm 51, if I can say that. I'm married. I have 2 children, 1 grandson. I love Hendersonville. I love living here. I've raised my family here, go to church here. This is my home. I really believe, and certainly in my lifetime, we're going to have 100,000 people living in this city. The question is, what do you guys want it to look like? I want it to be a place where everyone wants to live, people will visit and want to stay. My background with the city is strictly a volunteer basis. I started with the CPA, the Citizens Police Academy. If you're not familiar with it, I'll be glad to visit with you. But basically, we go out, fingerprint the kids, have fundraisers for the police, Toys for Tots. And then I was able to venture into the Reserve Police Department. It was flattering. It was tough to do at 45, but I enjoyed it. And why do I want to give back? Because this is my town.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Mrs. Hedberg.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Angie Hedberg. I moved here from Liverpool, England, about 30 years ago next April. Fell in love with my husband of 24 years, who's in the audience tonight. He's a retired senior chief in the Navy. Actually, he's a submariner. I got to say that, he said. We have 2 beautiful children who we tried to drag here tonight and could not, no matter what we gave them. So here we are. Sammy is 14 and Colin is 12. I have extensive experience that I can bring to the Aldermanic board. I've had 30 years of upper retail management experience. I've dealt with contractors, developers. I've negotiated very well with contractors and developers. I've worked with my entire life people from all diverse personalities and have gotten along with almost all of them. Someone asked me a question today. They said, well, how are you in an environment? How do you get along with other people? I said, why are you asking me that question? She said, your passion. I said, I have no problem with that. I'm a team player. And I believe I've been as successful as I am today because of the hard work and the can-do attitude that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hedberg. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for having this experience tonight for us. I'm Joseph Taylor. I'm your current Ward 3 Alderman that's up for re-election. And it has been a privilege to serve our community this past year plus. And we look forward to other opportunities to serve the city as this election comes and we experience it over the next few weeks. I bring 26 years of experience from working in a church-related ministry environment, building budgets, managing people, serving the community. We have been a family that have been servant leaders our entire life. We've traveled across the country serving the Lord, being open to ministry, and being the voice of our people, motivating, challenging, and encouraging them in a positive way to make a difference in our world and our community. I'd like to continue to do that here in Hendersonville, and I'd love to have your vote to continue to do that, to make a positive impact in our community to come.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All right, we're going to begin with the questions, and we're going to begin with Ward 1 in the following order. Mr. Delefison and Mr. McKenzie and Mrs. Petrelli. Here's the question. Some of the business owners in the older commercial areas of Hendersonville have indicated a need for attention towards revitalization, and others are concerned with ensuring the availability of affordable retail space options. How can, how can the older commercial areas of Hendersonville be revitalized without incurring negative economic consequences to the business owners?
Well, I think that it's going to take a lot of work. Giving some incentive to the existing businesses that are in the older area of Hendersonville that do need to be revitalized. Maybe some incentive with taxes and then help them with the frontage of their property with city sidewalks and trees like they did at the start of when we first come into Hendersonville. They made it real beautiful, and then it kind of stopped. And we need to finish that all the way up to where we have the other area of the city that's gorgeous.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McKenzie.
I'm going to echo my opponent's sentiments. I've thought about this quite a bit, actually, and I feel like that I know we've offered some tax incentives to newer companies to come in here. What's wrong with offering some tax incentives to people that have been here and have given their time and their energy to own a business in this city and contribute to this city, to offer them some sort of a break to allow them to beautify their property? Let's draw in some new tenants in that side of town. Let's give them an opportunity to make their place as beautiful as we can make it. And I think the city itself could definitely look at doing some landscaping, doing some things that'll continue to uplift the aesthetics of that area as well. So that's what I would suggest. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Petrelli.
Yes. Well, having grown up in Ward 1, I actually had family friends who had businesses along the street line there in our ward. And I can definitively say that from 1979 to now, there have been improvements. Is there always room for more improvements? Yes. I think it's a delicate balance of what the business owner wants in conjunction with possibly revitalization through codes, through planning, through landscapes. There's always opportunities. I think with the Indian Lake development, what that has provided for our ward in Ward 1 is more opportunity for businesses to come in who have a more affordable space than, say, in Indian Lake. We have a variety of economic levels where businesses of different types can come in.
All right. Thank you. Now, moving to Ward 2 in the following order, Mr. Sprouse and Mr. Waters. Multiple choice question. Taxation in Hendersonville is 1, too high, 2, about right, 3, too low. Choose one and explain.
I'm going to say that it's about right because it's a tax rate that I voted for last year, or just a few months ago. In fact, the entire board, including my opponent's father, Alderman Waters, voted to affirm that tax rate. It's one of the lowest in Sumner County. It's one of the lowest in Middle Tennessee. But it doesn't mean that we should always say because it's low, we could make it higher. One of my goals is to increase efficiency in government, to reduce cost, to find better ways to work in-house, to increase sales tax. Since the time that I've been in office, we have tripled the sales tax collected in Hendersonville, tripled. That itself would be about a 67% increase in the property tax rate if we didn't have that sales tax revenue. So we're able to keep taxes low. In the time that I've been in office, we've had less than 1% increase in the property tax per year, the time that I've been in office. So I'm very comfortable with the rate. I voted for it. Every member of this board voted for it. But it doesn't mean that we can't always work to keep it lower. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sprouse. Mr. Waters?
I think it's too high. Our city is seeing just almost unbridled growth. Some of it's not very well measured. The housing we're seeing is just immeasurable, and we're going to see that to increase. It's just such a beautiful area. That taxes alone is going to fill any voids we need. I just have a problem with taxes being increased. It always, you tax it, you spend it. What are we spending it on? I have a problem with tax incremental financing where big businesses come in here and they make promises with accountants in tow, promising benefits to the community. And ultimately, the city, the residents have to pay for it. Why does a corporate privilege have to benefit from such an attractive city? I think taxes are too low. I think we need to pump the brakes on it. Too high. I think we need to pump the brakes on it. And it's something we should look at. We've got a new administration starting from the mayor down. It's something we need to investigate.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Moving to Ward 3, in the following order. Mrs. Hedberg, Mr. Taylor. Do you think the city will be better served by adding a city manager and/or an economic development director positions? Explain your answer.
Actually, I do think that it would benefit from adding an economic development manager, you said? Is that what you said?
To either city manager and/or economic development manager.
Actually, I think we probably need a city manager. And what we need, though, is we need the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to sit down and actually come up with responsibilities of that city manager position, who they will answer to, what their actual responsibilities are. We used to live in Daytona Beach. And in Daytona Beach, we had not only a mayor, but we also had a city manager and commissioners, we never called them aldermen. And it seemed to work very well. So I do think that that position would benefit and take some of the onus off the mayoral position.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. Well, as you know, serving on the current board, it is a question that we addressed briefly just a couple of months ago. And as we were going through that process, I'm just going to give you the word of the many people that I talked to. I took that responsibility very seriously. I called people in several different states and cities that we have served in. I'm friends with or associates with the mayor in a town in Texas who is very similar in size and function to our city here. And to a person, the different leaders and mayoral leaders that I have spoken with, they absolutely love the idea of having a city administrator or city manager. As a city gets to be our size, there's a lot of diverse things that takes place. And if a mayor has the skill set to go out and be the front face of our city, he's the person that is going to help more than anyone else attract business to our city. We need to free him up to give him the opportunity to do that. And through the use of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and through the use of the mayoral leadership, provide the support that that particular city administrator needs. I think it would be a great idea.
All right. Thank you, sir. Now, back to Ward 1 in the following order. Mr. McKenzie, Mrs. Petrelli, and Mr. DeLefferson. I apologize.
Just say Skull's okay.
Here's the question. What do your constituents believe are two negative perceptions of the city, and how will you address these concerns?
I think the biggest one that I hear is traffic. Obviously, there's already a traffic study underway. I think that we need to address that. Just getting here from my house took me 15 minutes, which should never happen. And I think the other one is some drainage issues. I think we definitely have some issues that need to be corrected. especially in parts of town that have kind of been neglected over the years. That would be the two that I would say that most of my constituents have addressed to me, and I think that's how we should handle those.
Thank you. Mrs. Petrelli.
I would agree that, especially in particular to our ward, some infrastructural improvements related to many aspects, drainage, traffic, basically making all of our lives easier and functioning better as a city. It can be considered a positive extension of the tremendous growth that we've experienced. And I think regarding probably the most negative feedback I've received is sometimes how our city appears on Channel 3. And sometimes in the news, that sometimes it appears very negative, how we're getting along with each other. I think it is important to build consensus, to be able to politely disagree with each other, and to, build that consensus, build that leadership as city leaders to move our city forward.
Thank you. And Mr. Delefsey.
I've talked to lots of people in my ward, didn't have a clue I'd ever be running for an alderman to start with. As a police officer working with Hendersonville Police Department and being a real active person in my community, I've talked to a lot of people, and some of the infrastructure in Ward 1 and other areas of Hendersonville too, when we had the May flood, was a major problem. We also down Walton Ferry Road, there's a stench. It smells like sewer, and I notice it all the time. That needs to be fixed. We've not fixed that problem, and I think that's real major for those that live in that street. And then the traffic is I think they're working on that once we get the synchronized traffic lights and move that one intersection that's a jog from Old Shackle and Walton Ferry. I think that'll help a lot right there on the traffic.
All right, sir. Next, Ward 2, beginning with Mr. Waters and then Mr. Sprouse. Hendersonville has the motto, "The City by the Lake." What is your vision for enhancing the lake as an asset for our citizens and our guests?
That's a good question. I've heard some suggestions that we should develop Sanders Ferry waterfront, and discussions of dredging costing millions of dollars in developing the area. More restaurants, more parking, but I don't agree with that. I think we should work on what we've got now, how we can make it better. We do have a lot of parks. We're known for the parks, have a large park department. But that needs to be developed more for the children and to attract people. For example, some very nice people I met last week, they came here 10 years ago and just happened to stop at the hotel here in town, and they went to the park and enjoyed it and loved the area and decided to stay. I like to say I want everybody to do that comes to visit, and I think we can do that if we continue to work with what we've got and just make it more of a city by the lake.
Mr. Sprouse.
The key is to open up the waterfront to all. I mean, it's pretty basic. Someone shouldn't have to buy a lakefront house or have dock access or own a boat to enjoy a beautiful, beautiful asset that our community has. And I've worked tirelessly, even before I was elected, towards that. One of the first times I stood at this podium up here at Citizens' Comments was before another mayor and another board advocating for the dredging project that created all of that extra green space along Saunders Ferry Road. Because I knew that was going to help open up that area, and we're now having a greenway built upon that project. I've worked with the town center to help make sure that the right type of development takes place, and we revitalize the older properties in town. And you're seeing that with private investment, not public dollars. And even something as simple, my family for years, we sponsored, we managed the movie By the Lake. If you saw that, a lot of families did that. We did that for about 10 years with with different community groups. And it just shows that our interest is getting people out and in community, enjoying nature, God's creation, and enjoying their neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sprouse. Now, Ward 3, beginning with Mr. Taylor and then Mrs. Hedberg. What do you view as the biggest traffic challenge affecting the residents of your ward? And what do you think the city should do to address it?
That's a great question. Obviously, our ward, many of our residents travel the bypass, or 86. Many of our residents travel Main Street. And those are issues that through traffic synchronization that we already have on the books to hopefully go out will help mitigate some of those things. It is not, by all means, it is not a fix-all. But I think where I'd like to focus my attention with respect to Ward 3 uniquely is that we focus on the Center Point Road corridor. I firmly believe, I've had some initial conversations with our Public Works Department, with some of our other city leaders about really tackling the project of helping Center Point Road look forward into the future to address those needs now, so that Center Point Road can be widened and expanded to accommodate the traffic that not only is there today, but what we consider to be an issue for years down the road. We have built little blocks of areas in our city. We need to take a point and really plan for the future and make some road improvements happen, and that's a good spot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mrs. Hadley.
Both myself and Mr. Taylor, we live in Manska Farms, right off of Center Point Road. And we currently have a developer who is, if his plan gets approved, actually he's attempting to make Center Point Road a parking lot. We're almost there right now. I think the bigger question is we need to slow down our development. How much growth are we going to have in order to sacrifice the Hendersonville, the identity of Hendersonville? And Center Point Road is one of those big issues. We continue to grow and develop. And I know we have to grow. There's no doubt about that. But rapid growth is not the way. We need to grow with smart development. 20 years ago, Center Point Road should have been increased, should have been widened. 15 years ago, it should have been done. And the city, they didn't do anything about it. And now here we are with possibly a $20 million bill to expand Center Point Road and Hunts Lane. And I don't know how we're going to do that.
Thank you. Back to Ward 1. In this order, Mrs. Petrelli, Mr. Delefferson, Mr. McKenzie. The question. The League of Women Voters supports transparency in government, openness, honesty, and accountability. What will you do to promote communication between citizens and the Board of Mayor of Aldermen other than citizen appearances at the Obama meetings?
Sure. Well, as the current alderman, I have a 100% callback rate to anybody who has called me from Ward 1. Regarding constituents who called me from other wards, I typically reach out to their alderman and ask that alderman to get in touch with that constituent so that they can specifically address those questions. I also have a very active Facebook page, keeping the community abreast of situations that are going on, how we voted, issues, and the good old telephone. I pick up the phone and call people. If I hear about a situation in our ward where folks are struggling or they've got a problem, I will literally pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, one of your friends or neighbors told me you have a situation. How can I help you? I may not always have the solution, but I will find answers for them or get them to the department heads that they need to speak to.
Thank you. And Mr. Delefferson.
I concur with most of that. I think that we need the transparency and honesty for sure. Being a police officer over 40 years, I wouldn't be able to testify in court if I told lies. Your credibility goes right down the tube. So being honest, being hardworking, and following up on things that are occurring in your neighborhood, in Ward 1 or any ward for that matter. As a police officer, I responded to calls, and we tried to help the people regardless who they were or where they came from. Our job was to help people. And as an alderman, that's what I think we should do too, and be honest and be able to follow up on the leads. If someone calls me, I'm going to go check on it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McKenzie.
Well, I've already started to set up a database for email. I would obviously try to increase that if I were elected. Send out emails after each Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting, talking about the hot topics, keeping our constituents informed of what's going on in here every week or twice a month. I also phone, social media. I think most people here are social media savvy now. I think you have to have a Facebook page, that sort of thing. I will agree with Ms. Petrelli. I reached out to her once, and she did call me back, so she was 100% with me. I think it's about just being honest and open with your constituents, and if they call you and ask you a question, I think you have to listen to their question. I think you have to put it out there when there's something, a hot topic coming up before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. I think you need to put something out to all of your constituents that you have and allow them to give their feedback, and regardless of what your gut tells you, you've got to go with what your constituents say, because that's what you're elected to do.
Thank you. Ward 2, beginning with Mr. Sprouse and then Mr. Waters. What do your constituents say are the major needs of your ward, and how will you address those concerns?
Talk about traffic. We talk about paving. They talk to me about public safety. They talk about having a good place to work, a good place to raise a family. And they talk to me as well as about what we have to pay for this. A resident years ago told me once, he said, I live in a nice house, I paid for it. I drive a nice car, and I pay for it. He says, and if I want to live in a nice community, I expect to pay for it as well. I get worried when we talk about tax rates and saying the tax rate's too high. The last tax increase this city had for the average homeowner was just a little over $4 a month. $4 a month. That generated $1.6 million in the city's budget. Not just last year, but another $1.6 million this year. And so when they talk to me about these things, and Mr. Waters is one of my new constituents, and I would ask him, if you don't want to have that $1.6 million, if you're not prepared to pay the $4 per month, where do you cut the paving? Where do you cut the drainage issues? Where do you cut the police officers? Where do you cut all of these things that people come to us and say are very important? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sprouse. Mr. Waters.
Would you repeat the question one more time?
Yes, sir. What do your constituents say are the major needs of your ward, and how will you address these concerns?
Well, I've had the opportunity to visit many people what we call it door knocking. It's a job interview when you see someone. That's what it is. Do they want to hire me or not? And do they want to fire me? We work for them. I need them more than they need me. It's not the other way around. The one thing I'm hearing is communication is lacking. Some feel ignored. They don't hear back from their alderman. What I would say to that is I'm going to return phone calls. If I don't return a call, it becomes, well, Hendersonville municipality, they don't return phone calls. If I don't answer a letter, it becomes, the city doesn't care, they're not going to answer your letter. I'm going to represent, I'm an ambassador for this city, and I better do my job and respond to them. If there's no communication back and forth, nothing is going to work, and it has to be reestablished. It has to be appreciated, and that's something I want to work to do.
Thank you. Now, Ward 3, beginning with Ms. Hedberg and then Mr. Taylor. How do you or will you reconcile the needs of the commercial interest of your ward with the needs of the residents of your ward?
That's a good question. I think I'm going to turn that back over to the current development that's happening in Hendersonville. We do need commercial properties. We need larger companies to come into Hendersonville so that we can have people that can stay in Hendersonville and not have to get on the roads in Vietnam to go to Nashville, keep the cars and lower the traffic. We need to establish a team that can, go out there and get these big companies to come to us. I was actually interested about 7 or 8 months ago, and I heard that IKEA was looking for a place in Nashville. And I know that there's places that we could have put that in Hendersonville, so I was a little surprised to not even hear anybody, say anything about the company. That's the type of commercial properties that we need. I'm not sure that we need any more office buildings. You know, we may need some small commercial spots put down there in the old part of West Main Street, but I guess my time is up.
Mr. Taylor, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a partnership between our commercial entities in town and our residents. I think one of the key factors that help with that is having the proper zoning in place, putting a master plan together in the community, and then sticking to the master plan. As I serve on the general committee, one of the key issues that we deal with when we look at the needs of our residents versus the needs of the commercial businesses that want to come to town is where do they fit on the map and how we can best serve the needs of the community. Keeping those things in place, following the master plan, looking for the right types of businesses, reaching out to the types of businesses that can come to our city, that can serve the needs of our residents. I think those are key factors in helping those needs of our commercial interests and our residents as well. I think businesses will come to Hendersonville because we have great schools and we have a great place for people to work and play and worship. If they stay within that master plan, I think it bodes well for everybody, and we're excited to keep doing that. So.
All right, now that concludes, thank you, sir. That concludes the questions and answers from our committee. Do we have any from the audience? No. Okay. This question is directed to the candidates in Ward 3. If elected alderman of Ward 3, are you in favor of rezoning of Mansker Farms subdivision? We'll begin with Mr. Taylor and then Ms. Hedler.
Sure, thank you for that, and I knew this question would come up. It is a key issue that's happening in our neighborhood. In fact, my family's, we've lived in Mansker Farms for 6 years. We're raising our family there, and we expect to live there for many more years. I think the key is that development is coming. It's going to come to Mansker Farms, and the key is what we want to do to help provide the best opportunity for our residents to get the quality of life they want and the return on investment that they need on their properties. The way the plan looks right now, I support a large majority of our residents to where I would not support the developer in that particular plan. But we must know that something is happening, whether it's an old plan or a new plan or another developer down the road, those are going to happen. But from the feedback that I've gotten from our residents, I want to serve them, and that's where I stand on that.
Thank you. Mrs. Hedberg.
Thank you. Yeah, I've spoken to almost 3/4 of the residents in Mansker Farms, and none of those, not a single one, were in favor of this new plan that the developer has. And the reason is that he seems to have changed, he changes his mind like we change the weather. Every single time we have a meeting, something has changed, something has dropped off the plan. We have a pool, now we don't have a pool. We are going to develop the front, now we're not going to develop the front. We're going to put townhouses, now it's villas. They're 85 feet long. No, they're not, they're only 55. There's a distrust throughout the entire neighborhood. I don't think anybody does not believe for 1 minute that this will not go through. But we have to look at the residents that are living there. This has been empty for 20 years. And, I mean, after 10 years of the developer filing bankruptcy, he filed bankruptcy simply because topography wouldn't allow anyone to develop there. So my concern is, as a resident of Mansker Farms, if this goes through, what's to stop this developer from requesting, you know, I can't do this because of this, so I need to do something else. And then we end up with, we don't know what we're going to end up. So what we need is we need answers. There's too many unanswered questions from this developer, and there's too many questions that he's answered 3 or 4 different ways. I am not currently in favor of this new plan at all.
Thank you. The next question is directed to Ward 2. And we will begin with Mr. Waters and then with Mr. Sprouse. How will you create a more positive response toward your constituency than what has been projected in the past?
Well, I spoke earlier about communication. It's just not going to work if you don't have it. You're going to get it from me. Technology's great. Emails are great. Texts are great. The problem when you type something, there's a certain tone assigned to something you type. And that tone is interpreted, and sometimes it's interpreted erroneously. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected to represent, the communication is going to increase. It may sound kind of trivial, but I have a landline. Yes, we still have landline phones. I now have one for the house. It's just going to be solely for people to call. Nothing else. I'm just going to hear from the members of my ward. And those calls will be returned. And communication is going to increase, and they're going to hear back from me.
Thank you. Mr. Sprouse.
I cannot believe for the first time in my entire life, and my family's here laughing, that someone said that I have not talked enough and that I don't discuss city issues enough, because they're the ones who get to see me take the phone calls at dinner time. They're the ones who see me take an hour to go get a gallon of milk because I have 4 conversations in the grocery store. They know about the only place I won't talk city business is when I'm at church and when I'm on the sideline watching my son play a soccer game, but I will take a phone number and I will take an email address. I've had incredible conversations with people in the ward. It's going to be very hard for me to change it. The first time I was elected, I had 1,300 doorstep conversations, and I'm almost doubled that the next year. And it's going and it's working. And I understand that Mr. Waters has a limited view. I mean, just a few years ago, he lived in a different city. And just a few months ago, he lived in a different ward. And I understand when you have secondhand information, but part of the communication we have isn't always telling people what they want to hear. Because we represent about 7,000 people. And often there's about 8,000 opinions anytime something comes before the city. But I tell people the truth, and I work with them, and I try to get their issues best represented in the city. But we're not always going to agree, but we're always going to have a good, honest conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. This last question from the audience is also addressed to Ward 2. And we'll begin with Mr. Sprouse and then with Mr. Waters. Honesty with citizens about tax hikes is key to effective government. Do you have the courage to be honest with the taxpayers about when a tax hike is needed? If so, how will you deliver the bad news?
You want me to go first?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I have the courage. I've done it tonight. You see it. It's about having an honest conversation about what the needs of the city are, what the constituents ask for, and figuring out the least expensive, most effective way to deliver that solution. I have the courage. I've demonstrated it, and I will continue. Thank you.
Mr. Waters.
Well, sure, I do. But you better make sure your decision is well informed, nothing off the cuff, and you better be able to justify it. Is a tax increase needed because money hasn't been spent the way it should? Is there true transparency that we can talk about that? If it's indeed needed, as the city grows, if police are needed, if something is happening, sure, we need to talk about it. That could happen, and I do have the courage to do so.
Thank you. That concludes all the questions we have and the questions we have from the audience. So each of you get 1 minute to make a closing statement. And we will start with Mr. Taylor, then Mrs. Hedberg, Mr. Waters, Mr. Sprouse, Mrs. Petrilli, Mr. McKenzie, and Mr. Dillifson. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. Thanks again, League of Women Voters, for offering this forum tonight. Hendersonville is a great city. We chose this city. When we moved to town, we had options of where to live and where to raise our family. And we saw the product that was already here in Hendersonville, and we were excited to plug in, to volunteer in our schools, to be available on the baseball fields and the football fields of our town to help raise a generation of children. And then all of a sudden the opportunity to help serve our community in a more public way with the board has been presented itself, and so I've enjoyed that for the past year. You know, the question is, do we want the type of leadership that can work with people that has a positive impact, that has a record of achievement and accomplishing the purpose that it's set out, that we've set out to do. And I've done that. I've had an opportunity to serve, and I've done it, and I'm thankful for the chance, and would love to have the opportunity to have your vote here in just a couple of weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mrs. Hedford.
Thank you. I'm just a very honest person, heartfelt, passionate. I have a lot of passion, especially when I believe 100% in what I'm fighting for. Most of the residents of Ward 3 have already met me. Most of them have spoke to me. Most of them have asked me the hard questions. Most of them have put signs in my yard. Why did they do that? Because I am the only candidate in Ward 3 that has knocked on every single door personally in my ward as of 3 days ago, and I'm still knocking. I'm the only candidate that's cared enough to do that personally, that's cared enough to ask the questions and opinions and shared those opinions one-on-one. I believe in the wisdom of the residents of every ward, because the residents of the ward know what they want. Some told me don't bother knocking on doors of people who have never voted before. Why not bother? Maybe that's why they never voted, because no one bothered to knock. I've registered 44 people, 12 of them who have not voted in 12 years. I feel really good about that. I promise to you guys that I will be the best alderman that I can be, not just for you, for all of us, for our children, and for the history of our city. So I'm asking you tonight for your vote. Vote for Angie Hedberg between October 19th and November 8th, and I'd be honored to serve as your alderman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Waters.
Well, we're all still smiling, so I guess it's went okay. We started by introducing ourselves, and I did have a prepared closing statement, but I'm a little confused. That's my dad, Jim Waters. I love him and respect him. My opponent said my dad voted for this or that, but I'm Terry Waters. You understand? That's Dad, okay? What he does has nothing to do with me. Thank you. Now, I'm not going to be doing this job for 16 years. I'm for term limits. I hope this is being recorded. 2 terms is all you're getting. You stay in this longer than that, you're subject to political tinkering. You want to get reelected. You lose touch with the people that you work for. I asked for your vote, and if I'm elected, I will do my best. And I'm Terry Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Mr. Sprouse.
I'm sorry, I don't smile enough when I sit at this table, because these are very serious decisions. I realize when I sit at this table, I'm making choices about other people's lives, about other people's property, and I'm using other people's money. There are a lot of people here in this room who have known me for decades, and they know that I have a wicked sense of humor, and I love life, and I enjoy this community. I represent everyone. That's it. That's the job. I represent everyone, and the folks that we know that are going to follow us. In my ward, I represent my kindergarten teacher and my high school principal. I represent people I worked with and people I went to school with. I represent people who sit in the pew with me on Sunday and people who have stood in the pulpit. And I understand the difference between Mr. Waters and his father. I'm concerned about issues of nepotism. We've had this on the board before, but I recognize that every house I've ever lived in has been in Ward 2. I've lived in 5 houses, all in Ward 2. My wife grew up in Ward 2. 4 generations of my family have. Now, that doesn't say it makes me better than anyone else, but it gives me perspective. And I'm not going to disagree with my neighbors who have elected me. I've been elected 4 times. It's been their choice to elect me. It has not been mine. I've stood for election, and I think that voters have a right to elect the representatives that they want, the representatives they know, and the representatives they think will do the best job representing them. I appreciate your time. I'm Scott Sprouse. I would appreciate your vote yet again for Alderman for Ward 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Petrelli.
Thank you. As Alderman in Ward 1, my number one concern is public safety. Having come from a family of police officers and firemen, I'm honored to have received the Hendersonville Police and the Hendersonville Fire Department's endorsement. In my short tenure as alderman, I have already implemented traffic calming plans. One is fixing to start in October. Speeding, life safety issues, these are tremendous concerns in our ward and in our city, as witnessed by the horrific events of this past weekend. I have a head for leadership. I have over 20 years in architectural construction, nonprofit governance and management, and I've worked with law enforcement across the state. And I have a heart for service. I was raised to be a servant. I love to help people, and it is my desire to continuing serving in Ward 1. Thank you for your vote this year.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. Well, when my family moved here in 1970, and since I was only 3, I decided I'd tag along. I fell in love with this place growing up. I served 20 years as a volunteer police officer here in this city as well. I went to school here. I raised my kids here. My wife and I currently have custody of a grandchild, and we're raising him here. I'm running because I love the city of Hendersonville. That's the reason I'm running. It's no more than that. I believe we are at that crossroad that I talked about earlier with new mayoral leadership coming in. And I think we need to have a vision for my grandson that I'm currently raising and for the children that I hope he raises here too, because that's how much I love this place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. DeLefison, I apologize.
I too am in love with this city. I chose Hendersonville I could have lived anywhere in the United States. I had property up to 3 years ago in California. And you talk about taxes, don't go there. It's outrageous. I was raised in California, but in the military I traveled a lot, and I spent a lot of time in other states. While stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, is right on the border of Tennessee. I came to Nashville on the weekends like most soldiers that are 18, 19 years old, and I really liked the Nashville area. Several of my friends reside in Hendersonville when I was with Metro Police, Chief Jones and several others, and I had to live in Davidson County because I was a Metro officer. When I finally retired, I knew I could move out of this Davidson County into the place that I wanted to live. I spent a lot of time on the boat. Ran Hendersonville police boat on the lake for the last 5 years, and we have a real unique city with 26 miles of shoreline, and nobody else has it. It's a secret. Don't tell nobody. We want to keep the thugs back wherever they came from. We want to keep Hendersonville a safe place. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes part 1 of our forum. And part 2 will begin at 7 o'clock. Is that correct? 7 o'clock. No, part 2 will begin in 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The film, I forget.
Good question.
Good evening once again, and welcome. My name is Lorelei Gould, and I have the honor of serving as president of the Hendersonville League of Women Voters. The League is hosting tonight's candidate forum for those candidates for alderman for the city of Hendersonville. As you may know, the League is a nonpartisan political organization of men and women. As an organization, we do not support or oppose candidates for office nor political parties. We do take a stand on issues after a process of study and consensus. The League has a proud history of sponsoring candidate debates and forums, and just 2 weeks ago we hosted the mayoral candidates, and earlier this evening we hosted the candidates for wards 1, 2, and 3. The candidates in front of us tonight are candidates for wards 4, 5, and 6. And we appreciate that we have all of you here this evening, 100% participation, as we did during the part 1. And this is going to give our audience, our community, an opportunity to hear more from you about your goals, your vision, your views for the issues that are presented for the city. We appreciate all of you for your willingness to serve our community, both those of you who are already aldermen and those of you who are seeking that position. I want to give special thanks to the many league members who have helped to put on this forum, especially our forum committee chairman, Katrina Gay. Also, special thanks to the city of Hendersonville and Kay Franklin, who works with the city and has assisted in setting this event with us, as well as the videographer, Paul Frisbee. A video of this forum will be available on Channel 3, as well as the League Facebook page, Hendersonville Online, Hville Online, and on YouTube. And we hope it will be up as soon as tomorrow or tomorrow evening, whenever our technical expert gets to it. So you know, it's a committee of League members that have created the questions for this evening. We've discussed issues, we've looked at past history, we've looked at current events, and we hope that they will be thought-provoking and challenging to you, but we realize that we have given you only 1 minute for response, and so we hope that even though that's not a lot of time, in that 1 minute, you will be able to cut to the chase, so to speak. Tell us in a way that is understandable to our audience what your view is about the question, about the issue raised. Our moderator for this evening is Mr. Joe McCaleb. Joe is a retired Hendersonville attorney of 32 years. He currently lives with his wife Glenda in Williamson County, and we're delighted that he is here tonight to be our moderator. As moderator, Joe will introduce the candidates and go over the format with us. We ask the audience to please hold comments and applause until the end of the program. You will have the opportunity as audience members to submit questions on cards in writing. Please write very distinctly so that we are able to read them. And we will use as many questions as we can. It'll probably be just a few within the time that we have, so long as they're not a repeat question and that they are appropriate. So now, audience, please let us welcome our candidates, and I wish you well.
Good evening. I am Joe McCaleb. I am your moderator for this evening. Welcome all of you to the forum. I know that most of you have sat in the audience and probably heard the previous instructions, but since we're being televised and technically for the record, as we lawyers like to say, I'll go back over the rules and format for each of you. Each of you will, as a alderman candidate for the wards, you'll be allowed 1 minute to give an opening statement. Then we will proceed to the question and answer period, and we will go through each ward, Ward 4, 5, and 6. You will each be asked different question for each ward, and each candidate in the ward will be allowed 1 minute to respond to the question. Then, if we have time, and I'm hoping that we will, we'll hear some questions from the audience, and I would like the audience, if you write a question, to direct it to a particular ward so that each one of the candidates can respond, and they will each have 1 minute to respond to the audience question. And then, after we have heard all the questions and the answers, we will give each of you 1 minute to make a closing statement. Okay. Beginning with Ward 4 and then Ward 5 and Ward 6 with Mr. Ames, Mr. Gilley, Mr. Lamarbe, Mr. Woodcock, Mr. Raphael, and Mr. Waters. You will each have 1 minute to make an opening statement, beginning with Mr. Ames.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank the League for having this event tonight. For many years, I've gone to the majority of the events they have. They're nonpartisan, and they're really quality programs. I appreciate it. With my education, my life experiences, I founded and operated 3 large businesses. My involvement in community organizations, plus 17 years on the Planning Commission, and almost 4 years as your incumbent alderman, I can continue to add value to the administration of this city. I have a vested interest in Hendersonville. My wife and I have lived here for 32 years. We've raised 2 children. I have 4 of my 5 grandchildren live here in Hendersonville as well. So I want Hendersonville to continue to be the kind of town that we would expect it to be. It is my desire to do those things that make this town the type of town we'd like to live in, work in, and play in.
Thank you. Mr. Gilley.
Thank you, Mr. McCaleb and the league for tonight's forum. It is great to see so many concerned voters out in the audience because we are trying to work for you, obviously. My name is Andy Gilley. I've been here my whole life for 39 years. Been at Hendersonville High School as a teacher and a coach for the past 16 years and continue in that role now. It has been an honor and a privilege to get to know even better the constituents and the people that I call my neighbors in Ward 4. And I am completely confident that a lot of the things that I've been able to accomplish as a team builder, as a volunteer, as a servant of our city already, I can bring that to our board to create unity and teamwork and make our city not good, but the best it can possibly be. My mother lives in Ward 6. I like to think that I can work across the city with everyone and bring a spirit of unity that we may not have always had here. Thank you for your time, and thank you all again for coming in the league for having us.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lamar.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to speak and to answer questions. My name is Dave Lamar. I'm a candidate for Alderman in Ward 5. I've been married for 42 years, have 2 sons that graduated from high school here, 6 grandchildren. I've lived in Hendersonville 40 years, worked for the city for 36. Graduated from Tennessee Tech with a bachelor's degree and master's degree from Western Kentucky, and I'm a member of Long Hollow Baptist Church. I bring the table a little inside for 36 years inside the doors of City Hall. Knowledge and experience I think will help the board and mayor and alderman. I'm able to deal with all levels of people. The mayor worked for 7 different mayors, many aldermen, many volunteers and coaches, parents, Corps of Engineers, FEMA, TEMA, and so on. So I'm able to deal with people across the board at all levels and able to do that. Dedicated, honest, hardworking person. I'll do the right thing for Ward 5 and for the city of Hendersonville. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Woodcock.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the league for more or less bending over backwards to make sure I could attend tonight. I'm very honored to be here. I am Darrell Woodcock. I'm the current alderman for Ward 5. I'm the chairman of Capital Projects Committee, General Committee, and also the board representative to Hendersonville Horizons. I had a script I was going to read today. I've been practicing all day, but that's not my style. I have to speak from the heart. It's the only way I know how to do it. 10 years ago, I moved down from a small farm in Kentucky with a plan of living here for 5 years and then moving back home. I took a wrong turn and discovered Hendersonville. That is a true story. The next day, I joined the Chamber of Commerce. Since then, I have moved my family here. I've moved my business here. We actually bought a farm out in the county, thinking we had to live back on a farm. Realized I could not stand the thought of my kids not growing up here. I love Hendersonville. I love serving Hendersonville, and I hope to do that for 4 more years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Raphael.
I first became a resident of Hendersonville, a citizen in 1953. I've been your newspaper editor here. I've been a businessman here. This is my hometown, and I'm running for this office because I'm gravely concerned about the way that Ward 6 is being neglected in Hendersonville. Let me give you a couple of examples. In 2012, when Mr. Waters, my opponent, was running for office, he said to the then Alderman Hobart that he would be embarrassed to ask for people's vote and still ride on those terrible roads, and he mentioned them. Those roads are still terrible, and if he's true to his word, he'll be embarrassed to ask for your vote. Secondly, he said at that night at that forum that he was the only one in the room that really understood what people were feeling about the flooding. And here we are 4 years later, and some people's houses have flooded 6 times during his tenure.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jim Waters.
Good evening. Thank you, League of Women. I'm Jim Waters, Alderman Ward 6. My family and I have been a resident on Southburn Drive for nearly 40 years. Virginia and I have been married for 56 years. We have 2 children. One graduated from Hendersonville High School. One graduated from Beach High School. We have 3 granddaughters. One graduated from Merrill Hyde Magnet School. We have 1 great son. I am an Army veteran. We've owned our business for some 25 years. Since retiring, I still feel the ambition to help our people. I submit to you, being an alderman these last 4 years has been a blessing to me and my family. When seeking this position, I made a pledge. I would give them the service they expected and deserved, nothing less. I am fortunate to be in the position to serve as a full-time alderman. And that's why I ask my residents in Ward 6, if you have a problem, call me. Don't call City Hall, because I know the directors, I know where to take the problem and get your problem solved. So I ask for your support and your vote this coming November. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. All right, we'll start the question and answer period, and we'll begin with Ward 4, and Mr. Ames, and then Mr. Gilly. Question. The Regional Transportation Authority has announced its 25-year mass transit plan for dealing with growth. Would you support a dedicated revenue source for the plan? If yes, what revenue source? If not, how will this be financed?
I think it's too early to, at least for me, to answer that question. I've gone to many of the meetings on this topic, and I think the determination as to what the cost of any specific program still has to be made. And I believe that our city needs to be involved in looking at it, certainly needs to be involved in making the decisions, as it is regional in nature. And so I don't have an answer for that question at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Gilly.
I agree we've got to be a player in the regional transportation plan. There's no doubt whoever we elect as mayor, whoever we elect as alderman are going to have to be able to go to all these meetings and figure out what is in it for Hendersonville. Before we decide what's in it for Hendersonville, we can't make a decision on what we're going to do money-wise to help people until they tell us exactly where transportation is going to take us. If you are going to ask people to spend their tax dollars, you better have a very, very good reason for why they're doing it. I think in the past we have committed money to studies and plans that we have not seen the fruition of those things, and we have got to know 100% where our dollars are going to go before I would ever commit to spending one taxpayer dollar.
Thank you. Now, going to Ward 5, in this following order, Mr. Lamar and then Mr. Woodcock. The question. What is your understanding of the current contract between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the city regarding the Saundersville Road Connector project? How do you anticipate this can be resolved?
Well, I understand that it's been in the process since 2008 and that nothing has been settled at this point. TDOT and CSX have told us they're going to close the railroad track and that that intersection, and we'll have to find or put a tunnel in under the railroad track. At this time, I don't know how far along the development's gone, being the new kid on the block, so to speak, as far as the monies and things like that. Not really in favor of the tunnel at this point until we look at all facets of the development. Maybe adding some lanes like I did at Center Point Road, maybe adding some additional lights and or traffic patterns. I think there's some other things that could be done before we spend $8 or $10 million on a project that has been in the works for almost 10 years.
Thank you. Mr. Woodcock.
As Capital Projects Chairman, I met with TDOT to secure that contract after it was voted down previously here at BOMA. Worked out an agreement with TDOT to redesign the exit ramps. They've completed the westbound ramp. The eastbound ramp will be completed whenever the engineering is done for the tunnel. The city is meeting with engineering firms this week. They will be hired this week, and engineering plans will be drawn up in the near future. The Exit 8, Winston Hills Railroad Crossing will remain open. It's my goal to keep it open, but that's not our decision. A lot of people don't understand that. I'm fighting to keep that open, but it will remain open until the tunnel trestle is completed. That will be driven by the economy. It could be as soon as 4 years. If the economy slows down, it could be 8 years. It's one of my very largest projects that I've met and personally with TDOT, have a great relationship with them, and I look forward to seeing that project completed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ward 6 candidates, beginning with Mr. Raphael and then with Mr. Jim Waters. This question is long, gentlemen, so if you want me to repeat it, please ask, no problem. The initiation this year of the Durham Farms community and other expanding residential, school, and park development in the North Drakes Creek area of Ward 6 have dramatically altered the area over previous projections. There is a citizens committee that continues working with city planners on proposals for bike and pedestrian trails, as well as safety, utility, and economy improvements, as well as other considerations for the area. Questions. First, can you tell us what you know of this plan? And secondly, how you will work with citizens and your constituents to ensure that necessary improvements to pedestrian and traffic arteries in the area protect the integrity of the residential community while benefiting Hendersonville overall.
So do we get to have a long answer?
I wish you did.
Because that's a long question. I can tell you that the neighbors in that area are very concerned. That's the first thing they say to me when I knock on their doors. And they are concerned that the roadways that connect these various projects that are going on out there are inadequate. And what we've been doing is we'll build a project here, and the developer will put nice roads in it, and another one here with nice roads in it, and another one here. But we're having problems connecting those, and we need to have a better plan as to how we're going to address that situation. We don't need to be opposed to growth. This is an amazing city, and I'm not opposed to growth. But we have to manage the growth in a way that everybody's life, quality of life, is enhanced, not diminished. And even new development can bring up some enhancements if we handle it properly. And that's what needs to happen out there. I've driven through it. It's going to be big, 1,200 homes. And Stop 30 and some of those roads are just not ready for that. So we have some work to do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Waters.
Thank you. Well, first of all, he's wrong on the number of homes, as 1,800 will be built in the next 2 or 3 years. But being a member of the Public Works Committee, which I'm proud to be a part of with my colleagues, Pat Campbell, Mark Skidmore, and our director, Chip Moore, we've got a lot of work to do on Drace Creek Road, and the work is in the pudding. We're starting right now. So I know we have a time frame because the traffic is going to get terrible. It's going to increase because of the homes are already been selling out there right now. And the new park it's going to be open pretty soon. That's another disadvantage for the people traveling back and forth that live out there. So yes, we have our work cut out, but the Public Works Committee is on it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Okay, Ward 4, beginning with Mr. Gilley and then Mr. Ames. What are your plans, or what plan do you support for deer resettlement?
You had to know that question was coming. I myself have hit a deer on Anderson Lane, and my plan would be to go back to the committee that we spent so much time working with. We had a committee, it came with a recommendation, and the recommendation of that committee was unable to be passed at the board level. So we came instead with a law that makes people tell on their neighbors if they feed a deer, which I can tell you from walking around the streets campaigning, they think that's a joke. And our police barely have time to write tickets, let alone worry about who is feeding a deer. So my plan is to basically go back to the drawing board of the committee that we started with, because it is definitely a problem. When you go out and you put all your campaign signs out and you drive down roads and you're playing Frogger, trying not to hit a deer on Hidden Lake or Lake Terrace or Indian Lake Road, we definitely have a problem, and we have got to go back to the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Ames.
Well, you used the word resettlement, and that's sort of assumptive that that would even be one of the possible solutions to the deer problem. As a matter of fact, it's not. So, but realizing that you're wanting to know what we think about deer, I've been on the committee since its outset. It was a topic that my constituents brought to my attention and wanted me to do something about. I was told that it would be political suicide. Pretty close to right. It is a very difficult situation. The ordinance that was passed by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen was to cut down on the herd. However, that was not funded because there are costs involved. So we continued on with the committee. We did come up with the non-feeding thing. That was not for us so much as it was for the deer. Feeding the deer makes them ill. And I don't have time in a minute to go into why that's the truth, but it is the truth. We're continuing to work on ways the deer herd will double within 4 years, and we do not have a solution. The emails that I get, the conversations I get are about 50-50 for doing something about it or leaving it alone.
Thank you, sir. Ward 5, beginning with Mr. Woodcock and then Mr. LaBarre. How can the city deal with any consequences resulting from the recent increase of apartments?
The largest impact of apartments, in my opinion, will be on the schools and then down the road when the development is not new. Everyone loves apartments when they're brand new. They look nice. They're a great tax base for the city. What happens, though, is 20 years pass by and they become not so nice. And if you look at any police report, most of the crime happens at older apartment complexes. The issue there is funding the police force enough to maintain crime patrols and make sure we have enough flex units to handle those issues and work with them from that standpoint. Thank you.
Mr. Lamar.
Yes. One of the things that I'm concerned about is the infrastructure and the growth, and it's been talked about by all the candidates up here tonight, and that's one of them is apartments. I think we've slowed down. We stopped doing that at this point in time so that we can build infrastructure and let everything catch up to where we are at this point with the current apartments and current housing, the current traffic problems and things like that. I think the apartments is just one segment of the problem that we have with the infrastructure and the traffic and school problem, tax rate and things like that. So I'd like to see us possibly back up and do a better job at the planning and the development and the infrastructure with apartments included in this whole package.
Thank you, sir. Going to Ward 6, beginning with Mr. Waters, then Mr. Raphael. How do you propose we pay for addressing the flooding issues in your ward?
What was that question again?
How do you propose we pay for addressing the flooding issues in your ward?
Repay?
We pay.
Repay or repave?
No. How do you propose that we, the city of Hendersonville, pay for addressing the flooding problems?
Well, living there as long as we have, we've been through the big flood. We've been through 2 other water backup problems. But to answer your question, to pay for what's been done, I think the Public Works Committee is always already involved in getting it straightened on the Drakes Creek side by implementing a what we call a under trussel 3 pipes. That's going to really relieve a lot of the water coming from Drakes Creek and from up on the hill that's caused us all this problem all these years. To repay it, I don't have any reason to say that we need to cause our taxpayers to pay any more. The taxpayers didn't cause this. Development on the other side of Drakes Creek has caused it. If anybody should pay, it should be the developers, but that's long gone. But right now, Public Works is working on a program that I think we're going to resolve. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Raphael.
Well, it hadn't been solved in a long time, and it's been going on a long time, 30 years. But there are some good ideas that are being floated on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen right now. One of the aldermen has suggested that we have a fee of maybe $24 a year for each home that develops income and resources to deal with only the flooding issues only. And we certainly need to do that. We have in the past, the city has, with the help of government funds at a rate of maybe 80%, purchased some of the homes that are in Dyer's Way and cannot be fixed easy. There's also talk on the board about creating some ordinances that would allow the city, which would be a change of policy, to go onto people's properties in order to correct some of these drainage problems. And the truth is, It's the problem. Our campaign is saying we need less talk and more action. We've talked about this. There are ideas out there, but what we need now is action. We need to take some of these good ideas and put them into action.
Thank you, sir. Back to Ward 4, beginning with Mr. Ames, then Mr. Gilly. What do your constituents say are the major needs of your ward, and how will you address these concerns?
The major needs are, number one need is not the one you typically hear. It is public safety. The majority of the residents are concerned that with the growth of our city, that crime will continue to grow at the rate the city is, if not faster. And they want to make sure that although our public safety, police, fire, are very good right now, we need to keep it that way. So we have to have the underlayment to continue to allow us to hire the right people, train the people well, give them the proper equipment to have, so that public safety will be in place. If public safety gets out of hand, if the gate gets opened, it's very hard to close it once it's been opened. So that's the main thing. The other ones are deer and streets.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gilly.
Yes, sir. To talk about public safety, I think it's a concern of our citizens. We've had break-ins, we've had speed going through. We have so many cut-through roads in Ward 4 where people cut through from Maple to Indian Lake or vice versa. To recruit and maintain officers, one of the things I would support is a bridge retirement program for our officers, which would allow us to come in, allow those officers that want to get out when they want to, and maybe allow us to hire 2 people to take their place instead of 1. That's a way to do it without spending a lot of extra money. We hear from so many residents in Ward 4 that they're afraid they're going to have to move to like a Gallatin or somewhere else because they want to live in a place that they've known their whole life. We can't allow our city to become somewhere where people don't want to live. The traffic is a major concern, obviously, and it's not just within the back roads, it's on the main road. It can't take 45 minutes for us to go from the Maples to see our friends at Shipley's Donuts and back. We've got to do things to control that and keep our ward and our city the great place that it is to live.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Ward 5, beginning with Mr. Lamar and then Mr. Woodcock. What solutions do you propose for safety issues caused by the amount of traffic on Saundersville Road, much of it a 2-lane road with expanding development?
Yes, sir. I stood down there and waved a couple weeks ago at the bottom of Saundersville Road and realized real quick that it's a dangerous place to be. The road is narrow. It needs to be widened all the way from the bypass all the way down to Station Camp High School. With the 3 schools down there and all the traffic and the subdivisions, that road has got to be widened. We have got to look at that as a priority project with the developments in the schools going on down in that area. The traffic is just immense early in the morning and late in the afternoon. And so I'd like for the city to look at possibly 2 travel lanes and a turn lane all the way down there, or like they have done to the top of the hill, 2 individual lanes going with an island in the middle. But we need to look at that because of the amount of traffic that is on that road.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Woodcock.
Thank you. 4 years ago, I asked for money to be set aside for the redesigning of Saundersville Road, and I was laughed at. And so right then and there, I knew that I had to take leadership positions in order to see that happens. 2 years ago, I was elected chairman of General Committee, Capital Projects Committee, and my very first project was Saundersville Road. It will be widened, if I had my way, from end to end. I've already met with the county to let them know our plans. Millstone is paying for the first phase of that, and it has to be completed by the end of 2017. It will be 4 lanes from end to end, with medians, bike lanes, and a greenway. I worked a deal out with the county to connect to their greenway system so that every student on Saundersville Road will be able to take a safe route to school if they live on Saundersville Road. Very, very proud of that project. Cannot wait to see it done. And again, one way or the other, the first phase will be completed next year, 100% funded by a developer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next question for Ward 6, beginning with Mr. Raphael and then Mr. Jim Waters. How will you hold developers accountable? Let me back up. How will you hold developers accountable for off-site consequences resulting from their development, including roads, traffic, and stormwater drainage?
Well, when you're talking about holding them accountable, as you well know, the city planning commission and the city staff works through all these developments. And if problems are created downstream, then perhaps that we have cause that we didn't do due diligence to make sure those things did not happen. We have some developers in this city who have turned my hometown into an amazing place. I mean, when you drive through our city, I'm proud of it. Now, do we have some problems that maybe should have been addressed and maybe still need to be addressed? I'm sure that we do. The truth is, our city has grown so fast, we haven't kept up very well. And we have got to have the best leadership possible. We can't go through another 4 years over in our ward without leadership to deal with this stuff. And another 4 years would be devastating to us. So we have got to look at these things, but some of these developers will work with us if we work with them, and we'll end up with a beautiful Hendersonville.
Thank you. Mr. Waters.
Thank you. As of right now, as we speak, Public Works Committee has started a program with these developers. So many years they have got by with just doing their thing and then leaving us responsible. Maybe 2 years later, maybe 3 years later. We now are trying to get something going where the developers' fees will go up, but they don't pay anything for what they do. So we've got to put a mandate on increasing their fees, and we've also got a mandate that they've got to take care of the sidewalks and the abutments to the next subdivision. Right now, we have a problem on Anderson Road where a developer is building, and we're already getting complaints from a subdivision where they're getting water coming from this other side. So right now, we are on the committee, we're working to stop this from happening in the future.
Thank you, sir. That concludes the questions that the league had posed to each of you. Do we? Okay, we have some audience questions. Okay, Ward 6, beginning with Mr. Waters and then Mr. Raphael. How do you plan to address the road improvements throughout Ward 6? How will we pay for them?
As of last week, again, being on the Public Works Committee, I have the advantage of really knowing what's going on. Right now, we have got an engineer working, and don't ask me how they're doing it, but they have equipment that goes down the street, and they can check the condition of each road. It needs to be paved. They have a condition that they use. It goes like 55, 60, 65. The lower the number, the worse that street is. So that means we have got, as a Public Works Committee, we've got our work cut out for us to come up with the reason to work on the worst street first. Not what that alderman wants done or what that resident wants done that lives in another ward. We've got to take care of the street that's in the worst shape. And believe me, we have a lot of them in the worst shape. That's in the process as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raphael.
Even though he's on the committee, he's admitted that we've got lots of problems. I visited with a lady on Alexandria Court who moved into her house 19 years ago, and her street's never been paved since then. Her little daughter showed me a scrape on her knee, a scar that she has because she had a wreck on that bad road. Those roads that Mr. Waters talked about 4 years ago are bad. I have videos of them, and they are not good. Years ago, the city of Hendersonville had a plan where, and I believe it was on a 12-year cycle, it may have been a different number of years, but we went through and repaved every street in the city over that period of time, and then we went back and started repaving them again. 19 years is too long. We have allowed it to get out of hand. We cannot fix it all at once now because we're so far behind. But we need to develop a project-by-project basis, and we need to be able to tell people when they can expect to have a better road to ride on.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any more questions from the audience? No. All right, we have no more questions from the audience, so that concludes our forum for tonight. And, no, I'm sorry, you each get a closing statement. I apologize. I really don't want to get out of here like it sounds like. Okay, closing statement, and we will begin with Mr. Waters, then Mr. Raphael, then Mr. Woodcock, Mr. Lamar, Mr. Gelly, and Mr. Ames.
Thank you, sir. And again, thank you, ladies, for the invitation. As I look at the last 3 years, I'm amazed at the tremendous growth just in Ward 6 alone. I look behind Cracker Barrel, 8, 9 new merchants. Now, I don't know about you, but this is more inviting to me than a bunch of apartments. Look at Hobby Lobby, Glenbrook Shopping Center expansion, the widening of Volunteer Drive off Old Shackle. This is the project that your Public Works Committee can say is a win-win situation, not only for the city, but for the Expo Center. They have a large national medical call center already in place and expect over 900 employees by the 1st of next year. So in closing, I'm proud to be a part of the growth, although I hear people criticizing the committee and the board for too much talk, not enough action. But they don't understand. You got to communicate with one another, whether it's a committee or whether it's Bowman, to get things done. So in closing, I'm proud to be on the Public Works Committee, and that's why I'm asking for your vote and your support on November the 8th, so I can continue to work on the Public Works Committee. Thank you for your help.
Thank you. Mr. Raphael.
One of the problems we have is that Ward 6 has alienated some of the board, and they don't work with us, and so we're all hurt. But I need to change what I had planned to say in my closing argument because of something that happened Saturday that concerns me. I was over in Ward 2, and I noticed Mr. Waters and his son politicking over there, and I thought, why would a Ward 2 alderman a Ward 6 alderman be in Ward 2? And if you check the records, I think you'll find that money that was contributed to Jim's campaign ended up being given to Terry's campaign. And I know you said that you guys are not connected, but the people of Ward 6 are not real happy about this that's going on. Jim voted against nepotism, a city ordinance that the firemen and the policemen wanted, and yet he thinks it's okay for you two guys to sit up here on the board together, and I just think that's inconsistent. I love this town, and I promise you we're going to have harmony if I have anything to do about it with that board. We have to work together, or else we won't be happy with the Hendersonville we end up with.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Woodcock.
Thank you to the league for having such a great event tonight. Very happy with the turnout and the questions that I've been given tonight. One thing that I feel I'm very, very strong in, and the reason I believe I deserve your vote is I'm great at bringing people together and solving problems. I think that's why I'm the chairman of 2 of our 5 committees and the board representative to our long-range committee called Hendersonville Horizons. I've worked hard the last 4 years, and I would love to have your vote for 4 more years, which will be my last, I believe, in term limits. And also, since this is the only public forum, I want to thank a few people, my family and supporters. Without them, I could not do this. For the Firemen Associations, the Fraternal Order of Police, for their endorsement, Congressman Diane Black for endorsing me. I appreciate all the support I've received during this campaign. And I have got to thank Dave. I'm so thankful to have such a great opponent. We have such a great relationship and respect for each other. I'm just truly blessed, to be honest with you, especially being here tonight and hearing all the other candidates, and just very thankful for everything that's going on in my life, including Dave.
Thank you. Mr. Lamar.
Thank you. What a guy. People ask me why I wanted to run after 36 years of being Parks and Rec director here. My wife and I both retired. I've lived here, as you know, 40 years. I love the city like a lot of people do. Sitting on this table tonight, I want to continue to serve. I think I have the leadership, the knowledge, the experience, dealing with all the levels of people that I dealt with from the other side of this table. All those years I didn't have a chance to vote. Now it would give me the opportunity to have a chance to vote and to make some improvements possibly and look at some other factions. We all know we have infrastructure problems. We all know we have traffic problems. I would deal with those the best of my ability and, again, be responsive to the people. We live in a great city, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And I thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity tonight and to speak. And again, look forward to everybody getting out and voting on November the 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gilly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and thank you again to the League for tonight. And I want to also thank my mother for coming, and she would be the first one to tell you that my whole life I have probably dedicated serving others more than myself, to a fault, probably. It's just something that I believe in. It's something that I think I was probably born to do at this point. With pride and passion, I can tell you that I've always represented everything I do, whether it be a team I coach or a classroom I'm in or serving on a committee or whatever it has been. And with pride and passion, I'm going to represent Ward 4. We are one city, and we've got to be one city because we hear all these questions of negativity. We hear what's wrong with our city. We don't spend enough time about talking about what's great. I've gotten to travel all over the world. We live in one of the best cities in the world. I mean, we're on the outskirts of Nashville, which is recognized as one of the best cities in the world, but we're right there with it, I can promise you, if not ahead of it. We've got to keep it that way. And you talk about horizons, and on the horizon, Hendersonville has got to be the best, and we have to have the best leadership possible to do that. I appreciate your vote so I can help do that on November 8th as Alderman of Ward 4.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ames.
Thank you. Well, in the last 4 years, I feel like I have proven that I've got the skill sets, and I've got the experience, and I've achieved the results that Hendersonville needs. And I think I can do the same thing for the next 4 years and beyond. I don't need any training. My opponent seems like a nice guy, too. And but I think for this time, I have the experience. I've been the voice of reason. I intend to be the voice of reason. I agree we need to be nicer to one another. We need to come up with workable compromises and not beat each other in the head. I sincerely ask for your vote. I'll be happy, very happy if you'll vote for me, and I can go on for the next 4 years, continue to be your voice of reason. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our forum. Let's give everyone a quick applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our candidates. Well done. Thank you to our audience. I do have a couple of announcements to share with you. First of all, early voting begins October 19th and runs through November 3rd at the Sumner County Administration Building. Early voting in Hendersonville begins October 26th through October 29th at 2 locations here in Hendersonville, at the Expo Center on Volunteer Drive and at Shackle Island Fire Rescue on Long Hollow Pike. And if you don't do it during early voting, please vote on November 8th. For additional election information, not on our local elections, but on the state and national level, please visit the League website at vote411.org. You can find information about candidates in your particular district, as well as maps and what your registration status is. I would like to invite you to join the League of Women Voters. I hope you heard and understand that we are an organization of women and men since 1974, and Joe McCaleb is one of our members. We are a nonpartisan group as an organization, but as individuals, we are Republicans and Democrats and independents and many other things as well. We study issues, we share information, and we learn from each other. So we do have fun. So I invite you to join with us. We meet as an organization on the second Monday of the month. In November 14th, our speaker will be Dr. Del Phillips, who is the director of Sumner County Schools, and he's going to be talking with us about some of the new pathways toward graduation and successes in Sumner County. So please join the league, and most of all, please vote. Thank you very, very much.